An O'Reilly Auto Parts gift card is the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy-for person. Give the gift of convenience from O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with your host, Jamie Dew, Chief Librarian Thomas Senna, and featuring Matt Ardill. And now, curator of the hall, Jamie Dew.
All right. Thank you, Doug Donats. It is my pleasure to be here with you all this week in the Saturday Night Live Hall of Fame. It is spring where I am. It's a beautiful day, but there is a lot of mud on the ground, and you know what that means. That mat that you see outside the front door of the SNL Hall of Fame. Use it, baby. Wipe those feet and keep that mud on the outside where it belongs. Because the SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair, and each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer, and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity in the hall. I'm really quite pumped about today's show. We're joined by my friend Ryan McNeil he is of the Matinee.ca, but he is here to talk to Thomas about Bill Murray. So that's pretty exciting. A great cast member in Bill Murray. But before we do that, the aforementioned Matt that I discussed is not the same one that we're going to turn to now. This is a different Matt. This is Matt of Minutia Minute Matt. And we're going to learn some minutia for the next minute or so from Matt. I love alliteration, don't you? Let's go to Matt now. Hey, Matt, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Jamie. Super excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. What have you got for us today, Matt?
Well, Bill Murray, classic cast member, 6'2", born September 21st, 1950. Part of that almost original cast. He has 99 acting credits, 10 writer credits, and 7 producer credits. He comes from a family of performers. His brother, Brian Doyle Murray, his brother, Joel Murray, and his brother, John Murray, all actors, also all appeared in Scrooged along with him. And his sister Nancy, they're all in Scrooge. You just got to watch for them. And his sister Nancy is a Dominican nun, but she also put on a one-woman show as a nun, performing the story of Saint Catherine of Siena. So they've got the performing in their bones. He came to acting in a weird way. He was busted smuggling 20 pounds of weed in O'Hare National Airport after he got on the plane and started joking about it with his seatmate, who did not know him. Now, he got lucky. He received probation, and his brother Brian got him to join Second City to study with Del Close. Not exactly the most sober of mentors, but it led to where he is. Now, he is a huge sports fan, a huge fan of community service, but he was ejected from both the Boy Scouts and his Little League team as a child for being a handful. That didn't deter him. He's a baseball and sports fan to this day. Despite being kicked out of that Little League team, he owns 4 minor league teams and is an investor in 5 more, and was inducted into the South Atlantic League Hall of Fame in 2012 for his support. He worked as a caddy in his youth, so makes his role in Caddyshack that much more amazing. And he and his brothers own the Murray Brothers Caddyshack restaurant in the World Golf Complex in Florida, where he competes in Pro-Am tournaments and wins quite often. He is also, in fact, a huge bowler. And if you watch him in Kingpin, that turkey that he bowled, he actually bowled that. So people freaking out are genuinely freaking out because he bowled a natural turkey. No special effects. But, at the same time, he's very supportive of actors. When he was and directors and performers, when he was in Rushmore, he plays a generous benefactor to a young visionary. Well, during filming Rushmore, Disney pulled the funding for the helicopter scene. So Murray gifted Wes Anderson a $25,000 check so he could shoot the scene. Though Anderson says he never shot it, or cashed it. He found other ways to get the scene done. But he also worked for only $9,000 for his pretty much, secondary role. Like, he was one of the 3 leads of that film, worked for less than scale. He continued to be amazing with Wes Anderson when he was on The Life Aquatic. While filming, he worked to get his diving certification. Now, he's got an eccentric way of getting cast. I'm sure a lot of the listeners are aware of his 1-800 number. For those who don't know, if you can find it, you can call him and he may be in your thing. That could be a wedding. It could be a party. It could be your movie. He does not have a manager. He does not want a manager. He will be in your thing if you can catch him. Now, this has helped and hindered him, though. I mean, he's had some great roles. Not to mention he's been cast as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four. Was almost cast as Bruce Wayne in the Batman, directed by Tim Burton. But one time he was listening to an interview with Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg, who said they loved him, they wanted him as Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but couldn't find him, which upset him because he wanted that role. He saw that role, and that is for me. That is the perfect film. I want to be in that. But sometimes he makes weird choices. Like one time when he took the role of Garfield, he did it because he saw the script and thought and read it was written by Joel Cohen. But he read that as Joel Cohen, Coen, of the Coen brothers, not realizing it was Joel Cohen, Cohen, who was a different, and let's just say, differently focused writer of films. Now, he's supportive of Friends, was David Letterman's first guest on Late Night in 1982, his last guest on The Late Show in 2015. But he's had a unique experience in the world. Like, after his film Razor's Edge bombed, which he funded from his Ghostbusters money, he retired from comedy. He actually moved to Paris and enrolled in the Sorbonne, studying philosophy and history. So that explains that kind of professorial energy he brings to all of his Wes Anderson films. So yeah, layered and nuanced person. So I am very much looking forward to hearing the opinions today.
Yeah, me too. Should be great. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you.
Let's send it down to Thomas. Thomas, take it away.
Jamie and Matt, yes, thank you so much. I am joined by Ryan McNeil, the host of the Matinee Cast, a great movie podcast. Right now we're recording this. We're 1 week from the Academy Awards. And Ryan, I listened to the Fabelmans episode of your podcast pretty recently.
You're the one.
Well, I was the one, yes. I know, it was really good stuff. And I just I enjoy what you do, how you guys talk, how you talk about movies and everything. And so, yeah, so great job on your podcast and welcome.
Thank you. What I love about that episode, I try not to play favorites with guests, as I'm sure you don't either, and Jamie doesn't either. But what I do enjoy is there are some guests who I know I'm going to have to do less work. And my guest on that show, Corey Atad, is one of those guys who I know can talk. So when I get him on, it's a lot less me and it's a lot more Corey. And I'm always excited that I can just kind of ask my questions, let Corey like talk for a good 5 or 10 minutes and just give me all kinds of material to mold the show with later. So I'm not surprised that you enjoyed that show, because that's the guest. That's the whole secret of 300 shows. It's never about me. It's the people I get.
So whatever you guys did during that Fablemans episode was really great, and a lot of your stuff leading up to the Academy Awards, which by the time we release this will have been past, that stuff's been really great too. So I'm just really happy to have you.
Thank you.
And before we get started with our topic today, which is Bill Murray, we have some Season 2 SNL Hall of Fame podcast business to address. So you were on with me for Dave Grohl, which I thought was just a wonderful episode. We actually had really good feedback with that Dave Grohl episode. Dave received 32.2% of the vote, which I was simultaneously disappointed and encouraged by that, because we've seen interesting voting results with musicians. So honestly, 32.2% is good by musician standards. For context, Paul McCartney had 29.8%, and this was his second try. He actually bumped up from his first try. So Dave is actually, if a musical guest is going to get into the SNL Hall of Fame, Dave Grohl is kind of in pole position to be that person. So anything you'd like to say about the voting results and trying to get Dave into the Hall of Fame by the end of season 3?
I mean, the music is a big part of the show, and that's like I have always said that I, along with watching it for the comedy and watching it for the cast who goes on to do incredible things, I do tune in for the music. I love watching my favorite bands perform. I love learning about new bands. There's been a lot of times where I find out about a band on SNL and I just end up buying a ticket to go see them live. And just in the grand scheme of the show, music has played such a big part. So I'm hoping that once we get some of the name brands in, like some of the, the people who first come to mind when you think about SNL as an entity, that we can, start latching on to some of the music too.
Yeah, and Season 3 of the SNL Hall of Fame is a little less top-heavy than Season 2, so I think we will see a chance for people like Dave Grohl to get a really big bump into the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, Dave is the most deserving musical guest out of any musical guest that SNL's ever had. Maybe a little biased, I don't know, but that's just my perspective as one guy.
I will still stump for Prince. I will be here every time I get a chance.
You are the Prince guy.
I am the Prince guy.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So last time you were on, of course, we did talk about Dave. Didn't necessarily ask you about your history with SNL as a viewer. So I want to start off leading into our Bill Murray discussion. Sure. I want to know how you became interested in SNL and maybe Bill Murray specifically.
What's actually interesting is, so in my family, I'm the oldest sibling, and I have some older cousins, but they're 7 or 8 years older than me. So I was kind of in this weird little spot of not having a navigator when it came to like pop culture, and that trickled down to a lot of things: movies, music, TV. So when I was 11, 12, 13, like around the time that a lot of people get into shows like this, and especially because if their older siblings watch it, all of my friends were watching SNL in the age of Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Kevin Nealon, Phil Hartman, though that cast, that like 90 to 93 kind of cast, but I wasn't. And I actually there were a lot of times where I felt left out because I didn't understand the jokes. Wayne's World as a thing did not compute to me.
Somebody said, well, isn't that special? Ryan was like, what's
right over my head. Yeah. So it was a strange thing. It was a bunch of jerk classmates that watch things and didn't want to include me and then make their jokes on Monday morning. But eventually I, just took the wheel myself and started watching. So my real appreciation of SNL kind of picks up around 92 and goes from there. So, I think I said on the episode where we were stumping for people and like horse trading our votes that everybody has their SNL. Like everybody comes in at a certain point and that cast is the cast that is most endear to them. So my cast is people like Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, like the little bit they could do with Chris Rock, Phil Hartman, as I mentioned before. That kind of cast is my SNL, that like 92 to 95 kind of group. Ever since then, like I still enjoy where it's gone since then and the talented people that have come and gone. Certainly, as I said, the music that's come through it. But I'll always have an affinity for finally understanding what the heck my friends were talking about.
So Bill was a Second City guy. Just a little background. He was a Second City guy from Chicago. Of course, Second City produced so many of the comedic titans of that time. You had, along with Bill Murray, like John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner performed a bit with the Chicago Second City. He also performed in the National Lampoon Radio Hour, which had Belushi, Gilda, Chevy Chase, Harold Ramis, the recently passed Richard Belzer, Christopher Guest, just kind of a who's who of comedic titans from around that time. I don't know if you knew, Ryan, that Bill was a cast member on Saturday Night Live in 1975, but not that Saturday Night Live. There was actually a show called Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell that aired on ABC. So that's actually why the original Saturday Night Live, our SNL, was called just Saturday Night.
Right.
The
other name was taken.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but there's got to be like a trivia question of how many actors appeared on both.
Yeah, I think Brian Doyle Murray appeared on Howard Cosell's Saturday Night Live. I don't have the cast members in front of me, but that would be interesting to go back to if a listener would send us a message and let us know if you actually watched that Saturday Night Live of Howard Cosell's. Let us know as well. Bill Murray did audition for our SNL back in 1975, but didn't get cast. So he actually started on SNL in January of 1977. So Chevy Chase left. They wanted to fill Chevy's role, and everybody, the whole cast, pretty much knew Bill. They worked with Bill, and I think he had a lot of their trust and a lot of trust from Lorne. So he did make his debut in season 2. That was episode 11, again, January of 77. And I want to start here, and then we can just kind of go around with Bill Murray. But I think it's important to start at the beginning, because he actually, contrary to popular belief and a lot of my belief, Bill had a pretty good first episode. He led actually 2 sketches and did a weekend update commentary. He talked about Rosalind Carter's sex appeal as the new first lady, which seems kind of almost typical Bill Murray. That's a foreshadowing of a lot of what we would see on the show.
Rosalind Carter is not only going to be a very dynamic first lady, but also a very attractive one. Her lush brunette good looks are sultry, southern, and sexy. Those big brown eyes and those full, pouty lips bring her smoldering sensuality to the White House.
And he was also in a Conehead sketch, so Bill Murray was in a lot in that first episode. But that's important to me because maybe one of the first things that he's actually known for on the show was his appeal to the audience, essentially. This was in his 6th episode in season 2.
Hello, I'm Bill Murray. You can call me Billy, but around here everybody just calls me the new guy. I want to thank the producer, Lorne Michaels, for urging me to speak with you directly. You see, I'm a little bit concerned. I don't think I'm making it on the show. I'm a funny guy, but I haven't been so funny on the show. My friends say, how come they're giving you all those parts that aren't funny? Well, it's not the material, it's me. It's not that I'm not funny, it's that I'm not being funny at the right time. Honest.
What did you think of Bill talking to the camera and sort of telling the viewers, please like me, here's who I am?
It's not something you see very often. I mean, it's something that I think they would adopt more and more as time went on, and we started getting the weekend update correspondents as themselves, right? Like that's the thing, is like, going back to a recent season, where's the line between actual Pete Davidson and the Pete Davidson that would talk on SNL, on Weekend Update, because I'm like, I don't think that the line is really that distinct. And Murray was doing something very, very similar and setting it up, like he's basically in that moment of saying, I know that some of you might think that I don't belong here, but really I am funny. I hope that you can, just give me another minute. I have to, make sure that I'm not funny the times that I'm not getting paid. Like that was what really sold it for me, was when he's talking about, like, he goes, I met a girl at a party last week and she thought, oh, I thought you'd be funny, but I couldn't be funny because I was saving my funny for you folks. It's a trend-setting thing. Like, I don't know how much they were doing that in that how meta they were getting in those first few seasons, but that's, kind of something that they would keep coming back to. And I mean, even Bill himself would keep coming back to it. I always say that it's wild to watch the first appearances, the young appearances of a comedian. I went through this with, I was reading a book and it talked about one of the early stand-up appearances by Bernie Mac, who I know in kind of the more modern version of who he is. But this was a live at whatever that comedy show is, not live at the Apollo, but it's one of those like live kind of no holds barred kind of comedy stand-ups. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Bernie is out there just killing in the strangest outfit where he's got like a caricature of himself on his jeans and just absolutely destroying the crowd. But it's not the kind of comedian that you're used to. So same thing with Bill. Like, Bill now, like, he's gone through several phases in my lifetime, and now he's in this kind of older curmudgeon kind of phase. But watching him, not just, watching him younger is one thing, but watching him younger and having this plea of, I know you're not sure that I should be here, but please, let me tell you, I am funny, is both sweet and meta all at the same time.
I'm not used to seeing Bill being so self-deprecating in a lot of ways, so that was super interesting. There were a lot of funny lines, so it was like self-deprecating, of course, in a funny way, but This was like a genuine attempt for him to introduce and endear himself to this audience, and it's especially interesting to me because he had a good, confident first episode. So I was always under the assumption over the years that Bill was just not on screen, and then he's just like, all right, screw this. I need to talk to the viewers directly and reassure them that I can do the job. You had mentioned that he talked about how he had to learn how to save his funny for the show, and he used Dan Aykroyd as kind of a example of somebody who's funny on the show but would not be funny like in a social setting, and that was funny, but almost kind of, I think there's probably a lot of truth to that.
I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. Like, like it's their job. Like, I'm sure a lot of them are naturally funny, but at the same time, I'm sure that they're like, when they're like just grocery shopping or when they're just like having coffee with a friend, they don't want to be on necessarily. So there probably was a lot more truth to that.
Yeah, it's almost similar to, I don't know if you have experience with podcasting and whatnot, and I used to work in radio as well, and there was almost a save it for the air kind of mentality. A lot of times I used to co-host a show a while back in radio, and when my co-host and I would get into like funny conversation, especially about the topic that we were going to discuss, one of us would stop each other and say, let's save it for the air. Yep. And that's kind of an old thing. So
exactly.
Yeah. So that was a really neat introduction by Bill Murray to the SNL audience. And I know we said we were going to maybe go around, but this does actually lead into a character so as not to bury the lead, maybe, of this episode. 3 episodes later, he introduces Nick the Lounge Singer. That's the very first installment of Nick the Lounge Singer. Personally, I love Nick the Lounge Singer. I don't know about you though, Ryan. What do you like Nick the Lounge Singer?
He's hilarious. It shouldn't really work because it's just kind of abrasive. I think a lot of us have been in those kinds of rooms where the person holding the mic, you really just want them to stop talking much quicker than they ever do. We've all been either at a hotel bar or a wedding or something like that where the person singing is just taking one of your songs and ripping it to shreds, and this should be painful, but he commits. That's the one thing I always need to say about a comedian like Bill Murray is he will always commit to the bit, sometimes to his own like his own demise, but he will never short sell anything. He is always fully committed to whatever it is, including, you know, like wailing, making up words to the theme from Star Wars, first of all, and wailing them at the top of his lungs.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars, don't let them end.
If we encountered this type of person in real life, it would be almost annoying and grating. Get this guy off the stage. He's butchering this song or whatever. But Nick, to me, I can't help but root for him. He's like relentlessly positive. When people don't care about him being there, when they're just trying to have a drink or whatever, he's just so positive and just so him, and here's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to win you over, essentially. And
it's like if Stuart Smalley could sing.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of Nick's just telling himself, like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, like almost in song form.
And just to really sell it, they've got Paul Schaefer playing the piano for him.
Oh, yes. And Paul Schaefer, I think, helped them create these Nick the Lounge Singer characters, too.
Tracks.
So, yeah. So that definitely tracks.
I have no problem believing that.
Yeah. So we always saw Paul Schaefer accompany Bill as Nick the Lounge Singer in these sketches. And I don't know, these are just so fun to watch. Like, I'm always uplifted when I've gone back to watch these sketches. I'm just always uplifted by, like I said, his relentless positivity and just how much darn fun he's having up there, regardless of what the audience thinks.
Yeah. He's
gonna have fun up there.
Yeah, he's living his best life. You will never hear the theme from Star Wars the same way twice.
He also added lyrics to, I think, was it Jaws, possibly? He did the 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, that was
the same
one in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I even love that he's singing. Like, the funny thing is, at one point he's singing the theme from MASH, which does have lyrics, but people didn't really know them because people tended to know the show, not the movie where the lyrics come in. And even though the song is actually kind of pretty in its own right and strangely dark for a show.
The song's called Suicide is Painless.
Suicide is Painless. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. But listening to him sing it, you're sitting there like, this can't be real. You know, like he pulls it into this other realm of the multiverse where the song did not have lyrics. He assigned them and decided this is the way it should be sung.
Back in 2022, I was part of a character countdown episode that was put on by our friends at the Saturday Night Network, and they had the listeners vote on the top characters, and then they counted down 20 to 1. And Nick the Lounge Singer finished 17th, and I think that was maybe recency bias. I actually advocated for him maybe being higher than 17th. This is truly an iconic SNL character, in my opinion. There was actually an offshoot, and how Paul Schaefer describes it is that this next character that I'm about to bring up was maybe the precursor to Nick the Lounge Singer, but they actually wrote a different sketch for him. It was a character called Shower Mike. It was a really funny bit. If you hadn't had a chance to watch this, go back. It's season 2. At the end of season 2 was a Buck Henry hosted episode, and It was a great bit with Buck Henry and Gilda Radner where Bill. He was this guy who was taking a shower. He used soap as his microphone, and he was kind of singing. He was doing his lounge singer kind of thing. And then it took a funny, dark turn. He started interviewing his wife, who jumped in the shower with him. And then he was interviewing the man who she's having an affair with.
Now tell me, kids, you kids must spend a lot of time in the shower together when I'm not here.
You bet. No, it's funny. I'll tell you the truth. A lot of people have the wrong idea about that. It's actually a lot safer to rent a hotel room. You know, there's much less chance of meeting an aunt or an uncle, and you don't have to worry about changing the sheets on the bed.
Yes! Ouch! I forgot how much is involved in this kind of thing. Woo! Well, honey, you've been confronted with this thing now. Are you going to break it off with him for the good of your marriage, or are you just going to continue to stick the knife in and twist it, huh?
Yes, Richard, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Wow, that hurts. Okay, you have to excuse me, but I'm an emotional guy, and I really hate to get bad news. I'm sorry, but that's the way I'm built, okay?
So it's like Bill is upbeat and he's interviewing them about their affair, and then Buck Henry's like answering the questions in earnest, and it all just seems like they're having this good time talking about his wife's affair. It's like really that's part of what I loved about SNL back then, and even when they do it now, is just some goofiness that turns dark.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the Buck Henry episode is also one of the episodes where you get the nerds, where you get him as Todd DeLaMucca.
Well, you look nice, I guess.
So do you.
Here, I got you this.
Oh, thanks, Todd. Oh, this is really beautiful, Todd.
It's a wrist corsage. You wear it on your wrist.
That, to me, is another one of those iconic Bill Murray characters where he's just basically I think one of the things that Murray does well is he's always kind of been a big kid. I mean, again, sometimes to his own detriment, but he's always been this great big kid who's just doesn't really want to grow up.
The juxtaposition of goofiness and then taking a dark turn works when you do have somebody who comes off as a big kid playing those roles. So you buy the goofy nature, and then the dark turn has more of an effect if it's somebody who you can believe, who has just this goofy childlike sense about him. And the nerds was an interesting one to me too. It shouldn't have worked because I don't know if it was a novel thing to portray nerds in that stereotypical way in the mid to late 70s.
We're well ahead of like Revenge of the Nerds at that point in time, right? Like so it's still, I mean, it now of course nerd culture is a very, very different thing. So that whole sketch would seem very, very different.
Yeah.
But watching, what I love about that one is it's not just his character, it's not just Todd, but you always got to say Todd, like you always got to like draw it out the way that Gilda would.
Oh, this is really beautiful, Todd.
Watching him play off of Gilda, I think that was one of the things he did really, really well, was along with the fact that he would sometimes just get out there on screen and go for it, just like take the mic and start wailing, or just commit to a bit where he extols the virtues of how hot the new First Lady is. He also played very, very well, I mean, on stage, played very, very well with others. So when you watch like the Greek restaurant sketch and they're doing cheeseburger, like he's one of the guys in the back doing the cheeseburger, and he's I think he was the one making them and everything, but it's like he worked well if you gave him the ball, and he worked well to actually run the play. And sometimes there's a real problem with that when it comes to an ensemble. Like there's some people who just, if they don't have the ball, they're useless.
With the Olympia Cafe sketches, the cheeseburger ones, I loved how Bill was characterized in that, because he played the owner's third cousin in those sketches, but then Belushi said, I treat him like a fourth cousin because he's stupid. Right. So where you have, Dan in those sketches doing his fast-paced pitchman, cheeseburger, Bill kind of brought it down a little bit, and he was sort of kind of a pathetic doormat.
Yeah. Okay, cheeseburger.
Yeah, exactly. And he would get Belushi would boss him around and call him stupid to his face and everything. That was kind of a interesting, different side of Bill. Like, to me, that showed that Bill could go from confident and cocky to like I said, pathetic doormat pretty instantly and be believable in both.
I'll have a couple eggs and a couple egg sausage. Is that the link sausage or patty? Link sausage, eggs over lightly, a large orange juice and coffee. Thanks. Cheeseburger?
The wild thing about that is you gotta wonder. I wonder how much of that was performance and how much of that was just who he was, because we haven't touched on it too much, but Murray as a persona has had this just screamingly checkered legacy in show business,
especially recently.
Recently it's kind of taken a turn for the very, very dark, to which I almost want to say, like, we are having this conversation about only what has happened
Yes.
on this show
Exactly.
and not about what has happened since, because what has happened since is just, oh boy. And not recently, oh boy, but like 30 years worth of oh boy. But within the scope of this show, if we know that he was, if we know that he bristled with people like Chevy Chase, and later on in his career he would bristle with people like Ivan Reitman, or no, sorry, not Ivan Reitman, with people like Harold Ramis, and how he went on and he said he like hated the cast members that came after him, like the casts themselves that came after him. I think Rob Schneider mentioned that one time when he was on there guest hosting in 92 or 93, that he's like the whole cast just sucks.
He had like a disdain for that era of the show for some reason.
Yeah. It's really, I don't understand the mental makeup of somebody who can go out there and do all kinds of things, whether he's out front or whether he's in the back row. And yet we know that he's not always a team player.
From what I have gathered about his background over the years, he did kind of grow up, I guess, liking to fight and growing up kind of tough and around tough people. And maybe he has kind of he grew up with like a gruff kind of personality, maybe like a combative personality. Like some people have the fight, flight, or freeze instincts. And I think Bill's instinct was always to fight. It was to fight. Yeah, that's how he was. And I think he was competitive in things that he did and probably still does. And comedy seemed to be his main interest. And so, I mean, to me, it makes sense that he was super competitive in the comedic world, and he was a fighter and he was very combative. That's just kind of his personality.
I loved as well, another one that I came across that I really dug was there was an episode that Margot Kidder hosted, and there's a sketch where it's a surprise party thrown by Superman and Lois, and all of the heroes keep coming through, and it's Bill Murray as Superman, which just on the surface is hilarious because I can think of a lot of people over the years who look great as Superman. And I say that as a Superman fan. Bill Murray is not on that list. So seeing him in like red boxing trunks with, his paunch hanging out, they've got a stupid wig on his head and he's getting the party ready and making use of Superman's powers, how most of us jerks would make use of Superman's powers, and riffing with everybody else as they walk through. You have Dan Aykroyd as the Flash walks through. It's actually a lot funnier now because a lot of these characters are a much bigger part of pop culture than they were at the time. Watching Lois Lane and Lana Lang have this little thing in the background is hilarious. But that was one of those sketches that with Bill Murray out front, it's an ensemble piece, and with him featured, that I really, really loved.
Oh, look at your ring. What a beautiful diamond. Oh, thanks. Hubby here made it out of a bag of easy light charcoal briquettes for me.
He's a real handyman around the house, huh? They probably won't need one of these. Oh, a corkscrew. Thank you.
Would you let me open it first? I mean, there are some of us who don't have x-ray vision, and we like to be surprised.
I'm sorry.
Oh, a corkscrew.
A corkscrew. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's the one thing I could really use around the house. Lately I've been sucking the cork out, and I end up drinking the whole bottle. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of those classic SNL sketches from the early years. I always remember John Belushi as the Hulk. I believe in that one. Yeah, and Bill,
there's the Invisible Woman is like wandering around, but nobody can see her.
Bill, you're right. He wasn't he's not the first person that I would have picked to play Superman, but he's got to commit in that role and put his Bill spin on it, and I think he did a great job. One that, if you haven't checked out too, that I love was from season 3. It was a Hugh Hefner hosted episode, and it was the funeral magician sketch. So it was goofy, but again with these dark undertones.
Now, I'm just trying to cheer everybody up a little bit, and I'm going to keep trying, but I'm going to need a volunteer from the mourners to step up and help me. Now, how about this pretty girl right here, the Widow Gilsrack? Come on, let's bring her. Oh, come on, don't be shy. Maybe if we give her a hand, she'll come up. Come on, let's hear it for her. Come on. Is she marvelous? Come on up, Mrs. Gilsrack. Come on. You're terrific. Thank you. Now, we've never met before in our lives, have we?
What do you mean, hardly?
No.
What?
Of course we have. I'm just kidding. Good. I think we're going to succeed. Now, do you believe in spirits?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Now, be honest.
I don't know.
Oh, all right. Shh. All right, on my way over here, I had the most ridiculous thought. Typical, ridiculous. I thought, what if the spirits really did speak from the beyond? A little music, Professor, please. Now, I've got here an ordinary pack of playing cards, as you can see. Now, there's nothing on my sleeves.
So it's like how it sounds. Bill played this magician who was at this funeral, who was working the funeral, and Dan Aykroyd's playing the funeral director, and he ends up becoming the magician assistant. So they're actually doing magic tricks by the casket, and then it comes to almost a conclusion when they saw the casket. Like how you would, saw the magician assistant in half. They sawed the casket in half with the body in there, and they were doing all these tricks and everything. But it was like such a perfect balance of like lighthearted and dark that I love that Bill could pull off so well. And then he ended the sketch doing his lounge singing shtick, which seemed like something that he was just so comfortable just working the room in that role.
I was going to say, I feel like it never took much to get him to start singing that way. Like it wasn't the kind of thing where you really needed to twist his arm. It was just like, Bill, sing us. Oh, okay, fine. The other one I love that, kind of what we were talking about off the top of the show on my own show is I love that he had the 1980 Oscars moment on Weekend Update.
Now, this brings us to Best Picture. Yes. Now, Breaking Away, an exciting, wonderful, new breath of fresh air in Hollywood, something exciting and wonderful. It doesn't stand a chance. Norma Ray, well, Sally Field will get the award for Norma Ray. The Academy has a way of evening these things out. The movie must be despised if the actress is loved. All that jazz, a difficult decision for me because I did not see it. I'm sorry. Kramer versus Kramer, of course. This is the tough one because as all of us out there in America know, everyone in Hollywood has been divorced. At least once. People like Mickey Rooney, for example, many times. I think the Kramer versus Kramer will split their votes. Half will vote for Kramer, the other half for Kramer. They will cancel out, and Apocalypse Now will win by default.
And that they then echoed it like 20 years later, in a way that nobody at the time seemed to get. Like if you watch them back to back, there's a lot of parallels between the two bits. But when he went out in 1999 and started going through all of the 1998 Oscar nominees of Shakespeare in Love and Saving Private Ryan and all of the British actors that he thought, we shouldn't even be having them because we saved them in World War II. It's this amazing callback moment that nobody in the crowd seems to recognize.
Yeah, it was 19 years after his most recent one that he did. And I love those. And you being a movie guy, of course, I was going to bring these segments up to you, but I just love how he disqualified people that he knew. So he's like, oh, Jill Clayburgh, she's amazing, but she was on the show and I'm a friend of hers, so she's disqualified. She's out. And he would completely dismiss all the best supporting categories.
For Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress, I thought long and hard, but I still don't think that anybody gives a damn about any of these things.
All of these people, they don't matter.
None of them matter, yeah. And he also didn't see like half of the Best Picture nominees. He's like, I hear it's good, but I didn't see it, so it's out. And then
I mean, the great thing is there's a lot of Oscar voters who that is exactly how they go.
Absolutely. And Bill was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar in 2004, of course, for Lost in Translation. I thought it would have been way more poetic if he was nominated for a Best Supporting Role in something. I know he wasn't like supporting in Lost in Translation, but if Bill ever got nominated for a supporting role, I thought that would have just been so poetic. But I'm glad he was nominated for something. So it could all come full circle. But so he did those on Weekend Update, which he actually co-anchored with Jane Curtin for a couple of years. That's something maybe that a lot of, because he's known for his sketches and stuff, but he was on for a couple seasons as the co-anchor with Jane Curtin.
I think that may have been kind of lost in the shuffle. Like I think people would skip straight from Chevy and then Chevy and Jane, like straight over, like they probably in their brains kind of jump over that because it's not really what you associate with Murray when you think of, you think of him being more of the lovable dork, like you can kind of draw a line from somebody like Murray through somebody very much like somebody like Chris Farley, like so just the sweet doofus who's always game for whatever you want to give him.
And what was interesting is actually how he was introduced on Weekend Update. He was kind of the sweet doofus. He was introduced as someone who doesn't really follow the news, but has been fascinated to learn about what's going on because he was handed this role on Weekend Update.
But I am happy to say that Dan is being replaced by a most capable, highly respected broadcast journalist who will report the news with credibility and dignity. Please welcome Mr. Bill Murray.
Hello, you maniacs. Well, they got me doing the hard news this year, and I love it. It's incredible. I've been reading up on things that are going on. I'll tell you something. It's opened up a whole new world for me. Fascinating stuff.
So he was reading these news stories like, hey, this is pretty interesting. Did you know this? And of course, Jane Curtin's already put off by Bill as she was by Dan. Of course, part of her character being put off by them. And she rolls her eyes right away at Bill like, oh my gosh, I just got done with having to co-anchor with Dan and now I'm with this doofus. And but it was a funny, and then they did a point counterpoint segment on that first update as she did with Dan, and it was a fun first take on it because Bill actually agreed with Jane in the point counterpoint.
Well, Jane, you know something? You've got a point there. I've been flip-flopping on this issue all along, to tell you the truth, and at first I was all for it, but then somebody told me about this bathroom thing, and I know from experience that it can take me up to 15 minutes to urinate if there is a girl in the same room. So then I was against it, and then I heard the women didn't want it, so I figured if the women don't want it, why force it on them? And now you, Jane, a woman, coming out for it, and you obviously know what you're talking about. I've changed my mind. You've changed me all around.
So he wasn't adversarial like Dan was. He was actually, you know what? I never thought about it that way, Jane. That's a really good
screwed
point.
Up the whole formula.
Yeah. It was kind of an about face on the dynamic between Dan and Jane. But then, he was a little more buttoned up after that first update. They didn't play up that sweet doofus really after that. He was more just trying to be like a parody of a newsman, still sarcastic, but they didn't really lean into that lovable doofus much after he introduced himself on Update. One reason why I would advocate for Bill Murray being in the SNL Hall of Fame is that he put Chevy Chase in his place. And for me, that's a mark for Bill Murray. So he and Chevy, I don't know if you could believe this, Ryan, but some people on SNL didn't love working with Chevy Chase.
No,
yes, right?
No.
What? Yeah. So in February of 1978, Chevy, this is in season 3, he comes back to host the show, and Bill confronted Chevy in Al Franken and Tom Davis's office about what an asshole Chevy had been while he was on the show. And so the tension built up even more during dress rehearsal. So this was, I think, earlier that day. And then during dress rehearsal, there was tension even more. Bill made a comment about Chevy and his wife out in the hallway at 8H. And then literally 5 minutes before the live show, Chevy confronted Bill in John Belushi's dressing room. And Chevy said, let's go, put his hands up. And Chevy even admitted that he probably made a mistake by challenging Bill because he said Bill was tough and liked to fight, as we had talked about. So they both threw punches, and Belushi, poor guy, it sounds like he was just kind of in the middle of it, and actually he probably took more punches than Chevy and Bill combined during that fight. Gilda, Lorraine, Tom Schiller, Brian Doyle Murray was there, and he was helping his brother. I think he was grabbing Chevy's arms during the fight. So I don't know. That's a point for me as far as him standing up to Chevy. Did you know much about that fight over the years?
I mean, it's funny because they do call him Hurricane Bill. And it sounds like while for a while this was a force of good, it's kind of turned. So it's hard to suss out what was good moments of this kind of like you say, like very, like doesn't take much to get him into the brawl. Like he's he'll have your back if you get into an argument in the bar. He'll have your back, but sometimes he'll also start it, and that's not great. It's a strange thing because while we love these people because they can make us laugh, they're not always the greatest people, and they have to all work together. Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart. And like there's money at play. Like it's not just like something that they're doing for yucks, while they're all getting their college degrees. Like this is their job, and not everybody is suited for this job, as I think, like you can probably attest of some of the people who have cycled through, who some people have had like 1 year and out, and they go on to have like great careers, or sometimes somebody is already having a great career and they think they'll fit and they'll drop them in. And it's like, no, you are not suited to do this. But the whole point of it though, is that along with it being a job, like you have to get along with so many personalities. And it's Bill, while he is now kind of on the other side of that coin to many, he could, maybe it has to do with like the age at the time. At his age, he could see how people were treating other people, and he'd call bullshit.
Yeah, you know what I think helped Bill a lot, and I think it was fortunate that he didn't get SNL right away. I think it was actually helpful to him and the show that he came in with an already established cast of people. So he knew immediately kind of where he was in the hierarchy, where instead of starting at the same time as them, and then maybe he develops more of an ego than he displayed when he was a cast member. So I think it did help him starting in season 2 when these people were already established. Also helped that he knew them and had worked with them in the past. So I think it was an ecosystem that sort of was able to rein in a lot of Bill's more negative tendencies during his time there. So I actually think, we saw some of those negative tendencies creep out after SNL, but at SNL, that environment could swallow up some people, but I actually think it was really good for Bill.
No, me too. And as I said, like it let him show off a lot of different sides of himself. He's kind of, for the last 20 years or so, he's kind of been doing the same thing. He's kind of been doing either the really, really low-spoken Wes Anderson guy, or he's been the loud, guy who shows up at a frat party, even though he's whatever he is now. 72. I
forgot he used to crash parties. There was a little Bill Murray phase there.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's like his whole career story is fascinating and has all of these wild twists and turns. But these 3 years that he was doing this, it's kind of like him at his peak. Really and truly. Like he would do some other funny stuff, but the other funny stuff was, it came with more money. It came with a higher profile. This is kind of what I consider like the purest part of his character.
I think that's a really great way to put it. I think if you go back and watch those early SNL episodes and some of these classic sketches, we are seeing like pure Bill Murray, whereas, after SNL, we would see
that's
something
when ego
different.
Starts to creep in.
And
enabling starts to creep in, and it's like, no, go back. Remember who you were, buddy. That's the guy.
And to his credit, we live in a world where SNL cast members sometimes struggle to find their footing after the show. I love Dana Carvey, but he hasn't quite had like the movie career that say of like a Bill or Mike Myers or somebody like that. But Bill is the polar opposite. He, we've rattled off those movies: Caddyshack, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Scrooged, one of my personal favorite holiday movies. Every Wes Anderson movie, like just my favorite being Rushmore. I have to throw that in with the movie guy.
Thank you. I think the funny thing though is people will forget that Bill, his film career wandered in the weeds for a while after the zenith of What About Bob and Groundhog Day. He goes on and makes some really dumb comedies. Like I'm talking things like The Man Who Knew Too Little and Operation Dumbo Drop. He made some really, really lowbrow, silly comedies. And it wasn't until Wes Anderson comes around in 98 and puts him into Rushmore and basically reinvents Bill into this much quieter, sadder version of himself. Like he's not being Nick the Lounge Singer anymore, that his film career takes back off and becomes what we know it to be today. Because he was in real danger of burning out his comedy card and doing, he made some real, like, I'm not kidding people. Look up his IMDb page and watch what happens in the mid-90s. It is not a pretty ride.
I chose to forget Operation Dumbo Drop myself.
I never have. Yeah, no, I never have.
Yeah.
His, and that's the thing is this what we saw in SNL, like he would go on to greater things and then he would sort of start slipping into these not great things when his career, when his ego was in full tilt. But it took somebody coming in there and saying, I think you can do this other thing if you let yourself embrace this side of you. Like every comedian is also usually the sad clown. So it's like, embrace that sadder sack part of you, that father that's not, completely confident with the choices he's made, or the person who's lost a few people along the way. And I think we can actually get something out of this.
Yeah, man. Wes Anderson, it seemed like really tapped into that side of Bill. And of course, they obviously like
Sofia
working
Coppola
together.
too,
And Sofia Coppola, with the zenith of like the critical acclaim that Bill would receive for those movies would be lost in translation, of course. But I've always been fascinated over the years with his work with Wes Anderson, even up until the most recent one. It seems like they just really love working with each other, and Wes was like really good for Bill's career. I love that how you put it, sad clown. I think that's what a lot of comedians, they get to a certain age, we want to see that part of them. Makes it more interesting.
Definitely.
So there is that. That's what Ryan McNeil has to say about Bill Murray. What did you think? Send us an email, jamie@snlhof.com, and let us know what you thought. Do you agree that Bill Murray belongs in the SNL Hall of Fame? Do you think recent situations that have come to light will somehow impact his entrance into the SNL Hall of Fame? It's going to be curious to watch. That's what I think. But enough about me. Let's hear more from our featured guest here, Bill Murray, and move right into the nomination sketch. This is one of his more famous reoccurring characters. This is Nick the Lounge Singer. So let's get right to that. This is from season 3, episode 10, Nick the Lounge Singer with Bill Murray.
Da, 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 goo, 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 cha, 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 da, 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 da.
Thank you very much. I always open with a little something by a guy named Richard Strauss called 2001. Welcome to the Powder Room, everybody, up here at beautiful Meatloaf Mountain. I'm Nick Winters, and I'm here to entertain you, so sit back, have a hot buttered rum, and let it happen. Now, what do I see here down in front? We got a cute little girl here with a cast on her leg. Honey, why did you bother to come up to Meatloaf with a broken leg?
I broke it today. This is my vacation.
Oh, that's terrible. I guess we'll be seeing a lot of you here in the Powder Room, huh? I'm sure everybody wants to know. What's your name and how did you do it?
Oh, well, I'm Marilyn Sundberg, and I rented my skis and boots here at Meatloaf Mountain, and my bindings were too tight, and I broke my leg walking over to the tow lift.
Oh, bummerski, huh, everybody? That is awful. Well, the guys in rental are usually real good. It must have been some sabotage of some sort by disgruntled skiers or something. It happens. Hey, I am going to autograph your cast here, if you don't mind. A little something I always sign. Don't eat yellow snow, Nick Winters. All right, honey? You're welcome, kitten. Hey, who's this crazy dude? Your old man?
Paul Sundberg. I'm from Minneapolis.
Uh-huh. And what do you do besides babysit for Marilyn here?
I'm a chemical purchaser for the Ice Master Salt Company. Here's my card right here. You could use the product here at Meatloaf Mountain. You could use.
Bueno, my amigo. We'll put this up over the bar with some of the other cards. Mr. and Mrs. Sundberg, this next song is going to be for you because I hope that leg heals and you're back on the slopes in a couple of weeks. Oh, that cast makes me so sad. Oh, don't it make my brown eyes? Don't it make my brown eyes? Don't it make my brown eyes blue? Tasty lick, Paul. Oh, don't it make my brown eyes? They're actually hazel. Don't it make my brown eyes? Don't it make my brown eyes blue? Love it, love it. Just a second. We have a celebrity in the audience tonight. It's Heinz Clymer with a snow bunny in his arm. He's the head of the ski patrol. Up to a little bit of night hot dogging tonight, Heinz?
Not particularly. I just came to cash my paycheck.
At 9:30 tonight, Heinz will lead the ski school and the whole patrol in the torch snake dance all the way down Bear Run. So let's see if he's in any kind of condition to pull it off. Tell us, Heinz, where did the snake torch dance originate?
As a matter of fact, Nick, the snake dance originated in Zermatt, Switzerland during the World War as a signal to Allied bombers.
A little bit of history, everybody. Is that true?
No, I just said that because you will believe anything and you are a pimp. And if you don't leave me alone, I shall strike you.
Okay. And who is this pretty snow muffin here with you, Heinz?
Mrs. Lyman.
Excuse me, what?
Mrs. Lyman.
I'm sorry, could you say it one more time?
Mrs. Lyman.
Oh, Mrs. Lyman. Oh, I see. Are you still married, Mrs. Lyman?
Yes, my husband is exhausted. He's in the room, and I don't ski.
I see. Well, you make friends with Heinz here. We'll give you a couple of free lessons, have you up on the boards in no time. Mrs. Lyman, how about a request?
Oh.
Well, there are never any requests, I guess, because there's only one way that everybody wants it, and that's with plenty of snow. That's the way. I like it. 6 inches of powder, that's the way. With a 50-inch bass, I like it. And a lot of cute snow bunnies. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. That's the way we all like it. No lift lines either. Uh-oh. Wait a second. You hear what I hear? It's the Snowcat, Meatloaf Mountain Snowcat, operated by our own Jimmy Joe Red Sky, a fellow who manicures all the slopes and runs the snow guns to make sure none of you dudes hit any rocks up there. He comes in every night about this time to give the snow report. Let's give him a welcome. Come on, Jimmy Joe Red Sky.
Hello, Nick. Look what I got here.
Whoa, what is that?
It's a porcupine. I was coming down Bear Run doing about 50, and the snowcat, he ran right out in front of me. He froze. He looked, the headlights froze, and I hit him. I hit him with the snowpacker. He's froze up solid now. But, you can make a good soup out of their quills,
Well, how are the snow conditions for tomorrow? One thing about Indians is that they always know when it's going to snow, and I love that. It's terrific. What do you think about tomorrow?
Well, my nose tells me it's going to snow tomorrow. See the veins sticking out? I guess you'll get about 3 to 6 inches. I know, because I'm going to be out there making it with my snow guns. I need a drink.
Okay, and this one's on Nick Winters, if you would, Herbert. Thank you. Well, great. There you have it. Hey, everybody, snow tomorrow, but let's all think powder and lots of it, please. Who's a powder animal? Everybody, all right. Okay, Polly, you ready to play a little bit of music?
No.
Now, wait. This is the Nick Winters Show, and I do the entertaining. Thank you. Let's go out with something really hot for these folks. A big hit out of 77. Star Wars. Nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars. Don't let them end. Star Wars. If they should bar wars, please let these Star Wars stay. And hey, how about that nutty Star Wars bar? Can you forget all the creatures in there? And hey, Darth Vader in that black and evil mask, did he scare you as much as he scared me? Star Wars, those near it far wars, by 7
winner up here, Star Wars!
That is, of course, a classic. Nick Winters. Well, he had a different last name in virtually every sketch he was in, but that's Nick the Lounge Singer. This is Nick Winters with the big closing Star Wars number that we've seen on all the retrospective 15th going back to the 15th anniversary. I remember seeing that and just being blown away. I want to thank Ryan McNeil for joining us this week. Please visit his work at thematinee.ca. Thomas and Matt, as always, thank you. And you, the listener, thank you as well. Please rate and review the show. That's what I've got for you this week. So if you would do me a favor and on your way out, as you walk past the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNLHOF. This is Doug Denant saying, see you next week.
Podcasts and such.
An O'Reilly Auto Parts gift card is the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy-for person. Give the gift of convenience from O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.